Hello, my name is Misha Sharif, and you're watching Decoding Careers, where I talk to professionals about their careers. Today we have Irfan Jeffrey, who works as a neurologist at the Medical City of Plano. Now here's some information about neurology. On average, the salary for a neurologist ranges from about $58,000 to $245,000 annually. Of course, you have to attend medical school, and also do residency, but about 92% of neurologists hold a doctoral or professional degree. All states require physicians and surgeons to be licensed, but requirements vary by state. All physicians and surgeons must pass a standardized national licensure examination. MDs take the U.S. Medical Licensing Examination, or the USMLE, and DOs take the Comprehensive Osteopathic Medical Licensing Examination, or the Complex USA. In general, however, it will take about 10 plus years of schooling. So how are you doing, Uncle?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm doing great, alhamdulillah. I've heard a lot about neurology, and I really just feel in awe because one of my siblings does want to be a doctor. And when we were just sitting down and talking about it, I just realized that it takes so much work. So I'm really happy to be interviewing someone who's put in so much work and effort and really pursued their dreams and become a neurologist. And I think that's just so cool. Let's just go ahead and start in with the first question, which is, what 3 words describe your profession?
Hard to choose, but compassion, dedication, and care.
Yeah. Could you explain to me why?
So you have to be compassionate with people with an illness that's going to be either terminal or not improving. Dedication is required to get to a diagnosis, and you have to work through a steady stream of information to formulate an answer. And you have to provide care. And being a physician, what is needed.
Yeah, and I think those 3 definitely play a really strong role into being a physician. And you definitely talk to a lot of different people, like your nurses and your patients. And aside from that, I'm sure, as I was saying earlier, it takes a really, really long time to be a neurologist or just a doctor in general. So could you describe to me what educational background is best for this kind of career?
After high school, some people go to college, some people take the courses in school. You have to apply for a medical school degree to pass the examination from the boards of that medical school to be able to apply for a residency, which is considered in-job training. It is salaried, but as compared to the other competitive groups like IT, where after a bachelor's, you're a full-time employee. Here, you have to go through training supervised by other providers that are more qualified and more dedicated, that have dedicated time for training. And some people go on to do a fellowship after residency to choose a certain subspecialty or become a super specialist, and some people do 2 or 3.
Okay. And I'm sure, like in every profession, just like every profession, the medical field is always furthering itself. Humans are complex beings, and just going in no one really knows fully what a human being can do. So I'm sure that as a neurologist, you have to keep on constantly learning. And from this, I would just like to ask if there are any special certifications or trainings that you need to be a neurologist. I'm sure there are many, but if you could just tell me like a broad aspect.
So it depends. Neurology is it's a very complex field with multiple subspecialties in it. So people do require, after finishing medical school and completing a residency, if they want a certain niche that they want to get into, they have to do a fellowship in that. And some of those fellowships, if you want to prove that you've done a fellowship and you're trained, you have to do a post-service exam for that. So it's called a fellowship exam. There are certain certifications, like you have to maintain a BLS certification, which is basic life support, ALS, advanced life support, in which people require chest compression and other stuff that is required in an emergency situation. Some people perform stroke assessment in the ER, so they have to get that certification done. You have to maintain a medical license in the state of Texas and any other state that requires some hours of education associated with that time and certain clinical activities. So it's a very complex answer based on what people want and how super specialized they want to be.
Then let's continue.
Okay.
One of my favorite things whenever like I do interview people is to ask about like a typical day in their job, because you get so much insight aside from all the education. It's like how the education that you've taken and you've learned, how does that get put into place? So if you could describe to me a typical day in your job and basically how your day goes and just the basic things you do.
Very difficult thing to say. There's no, you get up in the morning and you get ready to be surprised. Most of the time you go to the hospital, you have a list of patients that is formulated for you, or if you go to the office, there is a set of patients that you're supposed to see at a scheduled interval. And you get their history, talk to them, get information from them, or whatever family members they have, or other physician notes that they have available. You, based on their history and assessment, make your best assessment of what your diagnosis is, if you can come to one, or you order tests or imaging to further your assessment to get to a diagnosis. And then in some people where the diagnosis is, you formulate a plan and give them that is the plan that they can work with you. Physician is not a leadership job, at least in my opinion. It's a partnership with the patient. So you want to make sure that you, whatever plan you have is also the patient's agreement is necessary. And sometimes your plan is good and awesome, it works, and sometimes you go back to the drawing board and reformulate another plan.
Okay, so it is just kind of like, I feel like it's a lot of trial. I wouldn't say trial and error, but I would say you just have to be with your patient and definitely attend to their needs in every way you can. And I feel like also just being a doctor, there's so many different aspects and so many different things you need to do. And you were just talking about how you needed to take like an assessment and run a lot of tests. And I feel like there's just a lot of aspects in being a neurologist, just like there is in any other career. So could you describe to me what you think are the three most important skills that are needed for your job?
Communication is key. If you're a good communicator, you'll get information. Compassion, because people that are ill sometimes require compassion, sometimes empathy, sometimes sympathy, and commitment. So communication, compassion, commitment.
Okay. And I think with these three, you definitely have like a lot of like with being compassionate, and you have to definitely kind of apply to your job. Could you explain to me why you would choose those three?
Um, so if you don't have compassion, you're gonna be very, okay, this person has a problem which I can't see, which I can't feel. You know what their problem is, and you have to be compassionate with them. If not, then you lose the personal aspect of thing, and you could be a robot and do the same thing that a physician does, and be coming out of a production line in Detroit. That's where cars are made. Communication is essential because all that physicians do at majority of times is based on history, and that history is formulated into an assessment. If your communication skills are bad, you're not able to elicit a good history, it's going to be difficult to get to a diagnosis. And you have to be committed to your patient and to your job. Otherwise, you're like, oh my God, everybody comes and tells me their problem in the world. Nobody's here to hear me out. And you get burnt out. So you have to be committed to the task at hand. There's a lot of other things that would be added to it, but these three come to my mind right now.
Yeah, and I just feel like being a neurologist, it's like a really delicate kind of balance in everything. And it's not, I feel like as a neurologist, you have to be really well balanced in everything. And you were saying that it's really easy to get burnt out. Could you tell me some of the challenges that come with being a physician?
The challenges are managing a life and work balance. It's very critical in all aspects of in anything, even in the IT department when people are sitting in front of a computer. But here you have to balance, okay, I'm doing something good, but is somebody suffering at home? So you have to, work-life balance is difficult. And then you are limited with 24 hours a day and your energy reserve that you can spend that day. So you have time restrictions. Cost of care is a big problem. Some people don't have insurance, can't afford the test, even when they have insurance, they don't have financial means. Poor judgment of patients and family members. Okay, I'm going to smoke today, and the consequences of smoking will be 15, 20 years from now, hidden from me now. And poor judgment leads to poor choices, which leads to illnesses. and then bad attitude in general. Okay, this person's here, he makes a lot of money because he's a doc, and he I'm in the mill paying his salary. So those are the few things that come to my mind. There's numerous,
Yeah.
as in any field. Everything has its benefits and has its setback. Administration is a big problem for physicians. It's a big drain
Yeah.
to the health resources, and that's a problem too.
Yeah, and earlier you had just mentioned how it's a really big struggle to manage like personal life with work life. And like when scheduling this interview, it had taken a long time because I feel you are really busy and I wanted to find the best time for you. I'm really happy that we could schedule this interview, but just seeing how busy you are, I just would want to ask, how do you balance your personal life with your work life? Because to me, your schedule must be very filled. And I feel like as a doctor, there are times when you just have to be on call and you have to be like you have to be ready for anything. So how do you balance your personal life with your work life?
So a lot of physicians will be in an office. So they'll go Monday to Friday and we'll have the weekend off. I chose to be a hospitalist, a neurohospitalist. So I'm working in the hospital 7 days, 24/7, and then it's 7 days off. The 24/7 is not I'm living in the hospital for 7 days. I come back home, sleep at night, I'm on call on the phone. But if there's an emergency, I have to go back. I chose this lifestyle because there are days that I can spend with family, and then there are days when I'm busy. There is a lot of give and take in everything. So the days that I'm off, there are times when I don't see my kids for 3 days when I'm in the hospital. And when I'm off, it's everything that has been carried over from the week that I couldn't do anything at home catches up. So in everything, there is a give and take. Unfortunately, it's very hard to say how to manage it till you get through the thick of it yourself.
Okay, I think like balancing your personal life with your work life does definitely apply to the person that is trying to balance it. And I kind of just like how you have like 1 week for your job, just dedicated to your job, and 1 week to your family. And I think that is definitely one way of balancing it. And when you choose to do that, you are setting aside, like you have like kind of like a mindset, I'm sure. And I definitely really respect that. I think you definitely put in all the work you can. It just shows how much you are dedicated to your job. Now, this is the last question and is the most important question. So, to all the viewers, please pay attention to this question. And the question is, what advice would you give to a high schooler who is trying to pursue this career?
Okay. Choose your career path wisely. Do the thing that you love to do. Set goals that are achievable. So your parents have goals, your uncles have goals, your aunts have goals, your teachers have goals. Choose the goals that work with you. It is okay to change a goal over time and adapt to a new situation. So those are the things that are my words. There's a few other words that somebody else said a long time ago, and I would like to share those. It's H.G. Longfellow was a poet. When we were in school, there used to come books with his verses that were written down in the back of the books and would say, lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime, and departing leave behind us footprints in the sands of time. And he also said another small poem is heights of great men, heights by great men reached and kept were not attained in single flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upwards in the night. To do all of it.
Thank you. That your words have carry so much wisdom, and I'm sure the words that you recite from the poet, those also I feel like have lots of wisdom in them. So to the viewers, please use this advice and please use it to the best of your ability. Everyone, this is Irfan Jeffrey. He is a
Can
neurologist.
I add one thing more?
Oh yes, go ahead.
Please. So, what as a Muslim, it is we have the best example in front of us, and that is the perfect balance for life, for living, for family. We should try to inculcate that model into our lifestyle, because most successful people in life are not very successful at home. Einstein was a very difficult person with his family members. He did not know his kids, he did not know his wife. There's a lot of other examples like that in science, even from all parts of the world. The only example that we have is perfect, is the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
So.
We should try to emulate him the best we can in our lives, and that's the only way we can achieve harmony in both this life, the next, family, and work.
Definitely. I think the Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is a great example for everyone. He is a role model, and I think he was someone who you just have to look at him and you just have to learn through his actions. Jazakallah khair, thank you so much for all of your advice. It was definitely very helpful, and I'm sure everyone can benefit thoroughly from it. Thank you so much for agreeing to this interview. Everyone, this is Irfan Jafri. He's a neurologist, and thank you so much for being here. Assalamu alaikum.